Hey, welcome to Fanfic Friday for this week. This is a series where we take our love of media and demonstrate it by writing terrible stories about every facet of it.
And the way we do that is by writing out various characters, locations, scenarios. We also get attacked by dogs, and then we put each of those things into separate hats.
I think all fanfic authors should be attacked.
Orcas?
All fanfic orcs should be attacked by dogs at some point in their life.
Yeah, it gives you the life experience necessary to write those hard-hitting fan fictions.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we put each of those these things into hats, and then we draw each of them at random, and then we have to write a fan fiction in a half hour or less.
And if you like the fanfics that we write, feel free to make suggestions for the characters, locations, or scenarios in the comments down below. We love getting your suggestions, and you will be credited if we use your ideas in our stories, as I'm sure you'll find by watching this video. So please enjoy.
The following fanfics are based on existing properties. We do not own the rights to the characters or the locations associated with them. These stories are intended to be non-profit and are written for fun only. Each author was randomly assigned 2 characters, a location, and a scenario. Each contestant was given 30 minutes to finish their story. What follows is the shocking results.
Hello. So this week I have a fanfiction that I wrote while we were at MomoCon. And the suggestions were from the audience. So this week I got Bob Belcher from Bob's Burgers. I got that handsome devil Marik Ishtar, word for word. The location was Planet Vegeta, and the scenario was helping Donald Trump with his new campaign, Make Anime Great Again. I don't know anything about Planet Vegeta. And when I asked Martin, he simply said, it's a planet. So if I get anything wrong, I don't really give a shit. Yeah. The day was hot on Planet Vegeta. Or maybe it was cold. No one was sure because when asking what Planet Vegeta looked like, the author was simply told, a planet. Nondescript, normal-looking humanoids wandered the streets, where rounded skyscrapers reached into the clouds as though stretching to prepare for the day. There was a beach, or maybe a forest. I don't fucking know what Planet Vegeta looks like, so let's say there was a forest. A forest tickled the outskirts of the city, leaves whispering whenever a breeze gave them a gentle shove. It had been a year since Bob Belcher had relocated to the planet at the insistence of his landlord, who was tired of not being paid rent on time and so instead suggested that he move the business to a new property he had invested in at a severely discounted rate. Bob wasn't put in much of a position to say no, since once the idea was suggested, Linda and Tina exchanged excited fantasies about what their new alien residence would look like. Louise passed out from excitement, and Eugene exclaimed that he couldn't wait to see what their fart smelled like, followed immediately by musical gibberish on his keyboard. And now, a year later, Fish Odor was back in their restaurant again with a new idea, assisting with the political campaign of a friend of Fish Odor's. I really don't know about this, Mr. Fish Odor, Bob said cautiously, standing behind the counter as his landlord stood in front of him, eyes wandering the room as they normally did. When asked why Fish Odor would never look him in the eye, the man tried to claim that his eye patch made it difficult to look at people. When informed that his eye patch didn't affect his other eye, Fish Odor elaborated with the further explanation that his eye patch made it difficult for him to look at poor people. He then amended his statement to claim that he just didn't like looking at poor people with his one good eye. Nonsense, Bob. I think you're a great fit for the campaign, the white-clad businessman insisted. You're a real everyman, everyday schmo, a big slob. We need the slob vote, Bob, and your partner on this campaign is just a little too slick. Well, thanks, I think. But I'm kind of not an everyman on this planet. I'm a human, and everyone else here is kinda not. Don't be a racist, Bob. He'll be here at noon. Before more objections could be made, Fish Odor was out the door. Heaving a heavy sigh, Bob glanced up at the clock. 11:30. He trudged into the kitchen, shouting down to Linda in the basement to tell him that he wasn't a racist. The 30 minutes flew by quickly considering they had few customers, but that was really nothing new. Since Planet Vegeta didn't have cows, I think, burgers weren't really an option. Bob didn't have the heart to change the name of the restaurant, however, so most people avoided it out of confusion. That was the one thing that was better than Earth, where people avoided his restaurant out of apathy. The bell rang at 12 p.m. sharp, and Bob poked his head out from the kitchen as Linda greeted their new patron enthusiastically. PC blonde hair caressed his shoulders, a pair of lavender eyes poking out from behind evenly divided bangs. He wore a suit, or rather half a suit. His pants were normal, but his shirt, jacket, and tie were all feverishly chopped off to reveal a well-toned midriff. Bob didn't know if this was some sort of sane twist on fashion, but he suspected it wasn't. Either way, Bob couldn't deny that this man was devilishly handsome. Even more so than that guy he accidentally hit on at the deli when he was buying a Thanksgiving turkey. "Hello, Madame Lady Dame," he chattered, a nasally voice ringing out in the empty restaurant. "I am here to see Bob. Where is Bob Burger Belcher?" "Oh, well, it's just Bob, actually," Linda chattered nervously, obviously affected by the young, attractive man's choice in wardrobe. "But Bobby's in the kitchen." "Bobby!" "Yeah, hi, Linda," he said casually, coming out into the dining room. "I'm sorry, sir, but Mr. Fischoder didn't tell me what your name would be." "I am Marik Sebastianishtar," he announced proudly, lavender eyes meeting Bob's colorless ones. "Guardian of the Pharaoh's tomb, then leader of an evil cult, followed by shamed ex-leader of an evil cult, and now I am the campaign manager for Donald Trump." Wait, like the orange guy from Earth who just lost the presidential election last year? Wait, are you from Earth? "You are correct, Burger Belcher. I could not stand that he did not win, so I brought him here. I think we've got a real chance here." Wait, isn't this a monarchy? What is this election for? "Shut up, it's not important. What is important is that we're going after the most elusive voter of all, the weeaboo." The what? Weeaboos are anime fans, Dad, Tina piped up from a booth in the corner. Like cartoons? No, Dad, we're a cartoon. "Yes, and in case you did not notice, everyone else on this planet is an anime character." "Oh, that would explain why everyone's mouth looks so weird." "Your dad is a racist, ugly little girl," Marik said, crinkling his perfect brows and looking to Tina for affirmation. "Yes, but you can't blame him. He's a product of his generation," she said simply. Bob said her name in an almost warning tone, but it lacked any actual threat, mostly because he was distracted by the second suggestion of his racism in a single day. "I suppose that will only help him. This is Trump, after all." "You're right, tall, dark, handsome stranger whose butt I haven't seen." Tina said the last part almost silently, hoping he would get the non-hint. "Hey, where'd our fourth wall go?" "It does not matter," Marik said, ignoring the audience and turning back to the task at hand. "What matters is anime. Anime nowadays is all about stupid stuff like emotions and conflicts and character development." He spat out the last offense like a curse. "We need to get back to our roots. Children's card games." "I mean, what even is a conflict if they don't spend 12 episodes sorting it out in a duel? That's stupid. That's disgusting. Who even talks about their feelings anymore?" Bob was too stunned to reply. His mind searched frantically for a non-offensive way to suggest seeking out a therapist. And maybe a normal shirt. "These people on Planet Vegeta know what's up. They don't get anything done in any of their episodes. That's why we need to start here with our campaign. They feel comfortable with what we're suggesting." "All right, but you're still not answering the question of what position we're trying to fill here," Bob reasoned, trying to find a way out of this. "I thought it was obvious," Marik said plainly. Now it was Bob's turn to frown. "No, you told me to shut up." "Shut up! You're not pretty enough to talk anymore. Once we take over Planet Vegeta, we are going to move on to another planet, and another, until we take over the entire universe." "That sounds stupid." "Your face sounds stupid." Then I ran out of time, so then Frieza came and blew up the planet. The end. Hope you enjoyed.
My fanfic this time was selected from a list of choices that the MomoCon panel audience this year selected for us, and I'm sure Marianne already told you, but they had a lot of very random, non-specific suggestions, and my suggestions this time that ended up being chosen were Rick from Rick and Morty, Daggett from Angry Beavers, a taco stand as the location, and I wish I'd gotten the names of the people who suggested these, but we didn't really have time, unfortunately. And the scenario, which A lot of these threw me, I'll be honest. I'm not familiar with angry beavers. I'm not that familiar with tacos, much to the chagrin of my wife, who loves Mexican food. And the scenario is trying to find Carmen Sandiego, which I don't believe was ever a thing in England. I don't think we really had an equivalent for that, so I did my best. Gee, Rick, are you sure we're in the right place? The green portal ejaculated Rick and Morty into the center of a bustling food court. The elaborate architecture surrounding them immediately tipped Morty off to their location. They were standing in the Vatican during Mass season. He knew because of all the Latin words that were resounding throughout the streets and from within various wall-mounted television monitors, and the fact that the beaver running the nearby taco stand was wearing a shirt with "The Pope Kicks Serious Mass" stenciled poorly across its chest. Well, that just seems in poor taste, Morty commented.
You're right, Morty.
Rick growled through a series of belches as he began working on a device that resembled a cross between a PKE meter and a Microsoft Zune. Mostly it was just a repurposed Microsoft Zune that Rick had turned into a transdimensional tracking device, but since the vast majority of the planet's population had likely forgotten or never even knew in the first place what a Zune looked like, he'd chosen to compare it to a prop from Ghostbusters.
Mexican food in Italy. Talk about a cultural no-no. Looks like we shouldn't have left it to Beaver after all.
Leave what to Beaver? Morty asked, his elderly associate's words drowned out by the Pope's religious ramblings emanated from his grand balcony. Blessings upon this and that. Morty imagined Rick had an argument against every sentence in the Bible. In fact, given their frequent journeys between dimensions, Morty was certain Rick himself was an argument against theology, period. Are the Beavers involved in this somehow?
No, Morty, it was a poorly chosen reference to an old TV show from before they let people cuss mindlessly on the TV.
Rick rolled his eyes as he input various commands and digits into his device, twisting the knob with the same deftness he'd been known to use on beer bottle caps.
Fucking ass goblins don't know shit about fuck.
And indeed, the ass goblins did not know shit about fuck. For as Rick and Morty attempted to get accustomed to the local customs, Daggett the Beaver was half bewildered and half excited at the prospect of actual customers. He flipped his lid and called them over. Quite literally, he had been keeping a lid on top of all the fresh tacos he'd been preparing. At least they had been fresh when he'd made them several hours ago, when the mass had started.
Welcome to Rome!
Daggett screeched, waving his beaver appendages at the approaching scientist and his teenager in training. He held out a sample plate which consisted of whatever Daggett hadn't finished scoffing down for lunch. The choices were limited, and what little remained had already had its innards sucked out, leaving behind only the soft, tasteless shells.
Take a free bite! I'll extend you that same offer,
Rick blurted, his eyes never leaving his tracker.
And then I'm gonna ask you to bite me.
Perfect! That's what we beavers do best!
Daggett laughed for a good half a minute, and then calmed right back down again when he saw the sullen glare Rick was shooting his way. I thought beavers were supposed to be good at building dams, Morty said, exhausting 100% of his knowledge of the beaver species in a single sentence of moderate length. Not tacos!
That's incredibly racist of you, Morty.
Rick coughed, wiping his mouth on his lab coat sleeve where mucus joined the remains of his last beverage. All in all, there were many disgusting fluids both in and outside the taco stand. It was a dangerous mix.
Besides, no matter what this beaver's good at, he can't help us. He's an idiot. He's selling tacos to a religious crowd. Newsflash, Perry the Platypus, or whoever you are. If you're gonna do it, at least get the theme right. Last I checked, Jesus didn't hold up a plate of tortillas and say, "Hey gringos, get a load of my body." It's religious mass, not uno mas.
Hey!
Daggett shrieked.
I'm just trying to run a business here.
Here's a better version of your not good idea,
Rick scoffed.
Tex-Mex at Mecca. Call it Tex-Mecca. That's just right off the top of my head. Oh hey, I have a reading.
The buttons and likes on Rick's gizmo were going berserk, flashing like it was some sort of tiny portable rave simulator. He held it aloft, and much to Rick's apparent chagrin, it appeared to light up brightest when it was aimed in the direction of his Popeness himself. Rick frowned and made some brief adjustments, hoping it would prove to be malfunctioning. It remained as insistent as before, dials and flashes pointing in the Pope's direction.
Okay, there's gotta be an ion storm or some other conveniently labeled bullcrap to explain this horse crap,
fumed Rick as he brought his beady eyes in close to the device's readings.
Saying here that our target is up there. That doesn't look like a shapely woman to me. Not when I'm this sober, anyway.
Well, I'm not too surprised, Morty declared. After all, you input all the information we had on her, and she's not even a real person, Rick. Obviously things are gonna get mixed up. Before Morty could even finish resigning himself to their failure, a familiar person appeared behind the Pope as he was addressing the gathering crowds below. A slim figure dressed in red and a wide-brimmed hat snuck out from the rear of the balcony and put their hand up behind the Pope, making bunny ears with their gloved fingers. Then they proceeded to take multiple selfies with him and pose in a manner that would have caused even the atheists in the crowd to take offense to such brash insulting of His Holiness.
There she is, that's her!
Rick announced, holding up his tracking device.
I knew my machine would work. Fuck you for not believing in me, by the way, Morty.
I don't think that's Carmen Sandiego, Rick, Morty whimpered. Sure, it looks like her,
But nothing. My readings don't lie. And mark my words, that is...
Before Rick could finish his argument, Morty's jaw sank as he watched Alucard backflip off the balcony mid-mass and start firing twin pistols into the crowd, whereupon he began ranged combat with some unnaturally powered villain. A bloodbath ensued, completely destroying the quiet reverency of the Pope's speech.
Well, fuck.
Rick grunted.
Tacos?
Daggett inquired, gesturing to his wares. Rick and Morty bought tacos and traveled back to their own dimension, where Carmen Sandiego did not take the form of an evil fuck-mothering vampire. That's the end.
Okay, so for this week, I got Hannibal Lecter, Garfield, making something up in the library. The library wasn't a place Garfield expected he would ever want to go willingly, but he had heard about how quiet it had become since gaining new ownership. And with John and Odie being overly loud all week, it seemed like the only place he could nap in peace. Of course, today there seemed to be some sort of festivity going on. It was a book club meeting and there were only 2 people, but it was more than Garfield was hoping for. He walked around the library hoping not to be noticed before declaring in a long sigh, "Oh well, if you can't beat 'em, join 'em," he said as he slowly meandered back to the circle of chairs he had passed in the main room. "Well now," Hannibal Lecter said in a smooth voice, "it's not every day we get a new member," he said, eyeing the orange tabby cat with a smile. "Yeah, well, it's not every day I feel like doing more than one sit-up to wake up and go to sleep in a day, so I guess miracles can happen. Besides, the noise here is nothing compared to what's at home," Garfield said with as much enthusiasm as he felt expressing. "Introduce yourselves to me so I can forget your names when I fall asleep in a minute." It was pretty obvious that he was telling the truth, but Lecter obliged anyway. "My name is Hannibal Lecter, and this here is Jeremy. He used to work at the library before I bought it out. Now he just attends whenever I show up. We had more members long ago, but they've since passed on." "Yeah, great. Hey, do you guys eat at these things, or do you just talk about books? Any lasagna? It's my favorite. My tumbly is rumbly. Who would have thought that today of all days you would come in asking for lasagna? Jeremy just made some last night, and I'm sure it will be the best this book club has seen in some time," Hannibal said with a serene smile. Garfield had perked up tremendously at this new information, and found himself salivating at the notion of surprise lasagna. "Well, don't just sit there, let's have it out," Garfield said, immediately being impatient. "Where have your manners gone? Not that you had much to begin with, but do try and be polite. Jeremy put his body and soul into this dish, I'm sure. Right, Jeremy?" Hannibal said as he gave a knowing glance to Jeremy. Garfield passed off the comment about manners and finally looked over at Jeremy. He seemed to be half asleep. His eyes were still open, but he was only mildly there, and you could tell. Garfield had a feeling that this Lecter character was either just trying to make Jeremy feel better, or was hoping to pass it all off on him so he wouldn't have to eat any himself. "So tell me, Jeremy, what's in this lasagna? I doubt that you use sprinkles and rainbows to make it taste as magical as Hannibal was saying," Garfield said grumpily as he looked fiercely at Jeremy, who was drooling slightly. He looked blankly at the wall he had been staring at the entire time, so Hannibal responded for him. "Well, truth be told, I don't believe I've caught your name just yet." "Garfield." "Ah, yes, Garfield. This is a family recipe of mine that I had Jeremy help me with. He's always been a bit too proud to admit that he needs some help, so I gave him some pointers," Hannibal said coolly. "Well, I'm not too proud to admit that I want lasagna, and it actually makes me feel a bit better that it wasn't all his doing. He doesn't look completely there," Garfield said to the figure that was slumped slightly forward but had his feet firmly planted to support him staying upright, with his arms hooked around the backs of the chairs on either side of him. "That's not really a nice thing to say. You should be more careful of the things you say to people. You wouldn't want to hurt their feelings," Lecter said with a slight edge to his voice. "That's good and well, but seriously, the lasagna, if you don't mind," Garfield said, adding edge to his voice to match the intensity. "After you, my new friend," Hannibal said as he slid the foil-covered bakeware towards the cat from under Jeremy's chair. "I haven't had any yet, but I'm excited to see what you think," Hannibal said with a smile. The cat eagerly shoved fistfuls of the lasagna into his mouth until there was only one piece left. "That seems a bit rude to take so much of it all at once," Hannibal said. "How did it taste?" he said with a slight smirk dancing across his lips. "Tasted like human brain and possibly another organ. Maybe some liver. Quite good if you ask me," Garfield said coolly. "What an informed palate you have, Garfield. You aren't the first and won't be the last to serve it to me. Now, if you please, have the rest," Garfield said, shoving the tray at the murderer. "With pleasure," he said as he began eating. It's not something I would have expected from an orange tabby cat to have... He stopped short and dropped his fork filled with his third bite of lasagna as his vision blurred and he began choking. Didn't notice when I slipped under Jeremy's chair and poured something in the corner piece, did ya? Garfield said calmly. What's the point in killing me? Weren't you just here to find some quiet? That? Oh no, I can sleep anywhere I want, whenever I want. See, I know all about you and your schemes. I've been tailing you for weeks after I heard some interesting stories John talked about on the news of a cannibal on the run from the police. After a bit of sleuthing around your home, I knew today would be lasagna day, he said, standing just out of reach of the man who was dying quickly. What's there to gain from making up such a story? You're a cat. You can't take in a reward, Hannibal said with a smile. No, I don't want one. I want lasagna, and after tasting yours, I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to have any competition in the neighborhood. I'm sure you'll be delicious, Garfield said with fire in his eyes as Lecter fell into an unending sleep.
Thanks for joining us for this fanfiction-themed adventure for this week.
It was so exciting!
Oh, she's so excited she don't even remember what happened. It was great. It's not like we're just making this up as if we actually watched it and experienced it just now. We're not doing that. Anyway, I think you'll agree that there's one really good way to enjoy Fanfic Friday, and that's being part of Fanfic Friday. So, if you like, I highly recommend it, it's a lot of fun, make suggestions for us, characters, locations, scenarios, all three if you want, but make sure they're not intrinsically tied together and can exist separately if they have to. For example, do not have Ronald McDonald and
McDonald's
and the Hamburglar eating
a
Hamburglar and reacting to each other. Obviously, all four of those technically couldn't exist in their own stories, but it sounds kind of like you want it to be one story. You go write that story. It's not on us. It's not our job.
And do it in 30 minutes or less.
That's our job.
Yeah,
so please suggest things. We'd love to see your suggestions, and we'll credit you next time if we pick your thing.
And check out our archive of our own.
Check it out. It's down there in the description.
We have an archive of our own page, and you can go and see all the fan fictions we've written previously. It might be a little bit out of date because we are currently not in the country, but we'll do our best.
Well, we will do our best for you while we're overseas. The ground just shook because God didn't believe what I said.
Also, our dog's butt hit the tripod.
That too. But we'll see you next time.